The morning they laughed at her, the temperature was already 91 degrees by 8 o'clock. Eleanor May Whitcomb was 68 years old. She stood alone at the edge of her south field, wearing her late husband's flannel shirt, the one that hung loose on her shoulders the way grief does when you've stopped trying to fold it away. 70 head of Brahman cattle moved through the brush on the northeast corner of her property. 43 acres of scrub timber, old fence lines tangled with honey locust, a creek bottom that had not been worked in better than 30 years. Her neighbors figured it would stay that way forever, and they were not gentle about saying so. When Dale Kramer's new F-250 stopped on the gravel shoulder, she did not turn her head. "Mrs. Whitcomb," he called out, leaning on the door the way a man does when he already knows the joke. "Your husband's been in the ground less than 2 years, and you're already turning this place into a petting zoo." The Pritchett brothers laughed. Eleanor said nothing, because what those three men did not know, and what she had carried alone for 16 years, was that somewhere under that northeast corner there was something her father-in-law had told her to keep. And the time had come to find it. The sun was climbing fast, too fast. The kind of July morning that promised the kind of July afternoon nobody in Harlem County wanted to remember. Across the road, the Henderson place looked like a postcard. Corn so tall and clean it could have been painted there. Eleanor stared at it for a long second. Not with envy, with something else. Recognition, maybe. Because the Hendersons had done everything right. By the book, by the bank, by the seed catalog. And here she was, standing in a flannel shirt, watching 70 head of Brahman cattle disappear into a wall of brush that her neighbors swore would swallow her whole before October. The cattle were gray-silver in the morning light, humped at the shoulder, long-eared, slow. Brahmins do not hurry. Brahmins do not argue. Brahmins eat what is in front of them and keep walking, which was exactly why Eleanor had bought them. Not Angus, not Hereford. Brahman. The man at the auction had raised an eyebrow. Brahman in Kansas. She had nodded once. Heat tolerant, she'd said. Drought tolerant. She hadn't said the other thing. The thing she only said to herself when she could not sleep. Stubborn tolerant. Because she needed cattle that could stand what she was about to ask them to stand. 43 acres of scrub timber. Honey locust thorns as long as her finger. Old fence lines tangled in wild grape. A creek bottom that flooded 3 weeks every spring and dried to dust by August. Ground that had not been worked since before her hair turned gray. Her neighbors figured it would stay that way forever, and they were not gentle about saying so. She heard the truck before she saw it. New tires on gravel make a particular sound. Sharp, confident. The sound of something that has not paid for itself yet. Eleanor did not turn her head. Dale Kramer leaned out the driver's side. Elbow on the door. The way a man leans when he has already written the punchline. The Pritchetts were riding shotgun in middle. Matching ball caps, matching grins. The kind of grin that practices itself in the rearview mirror. Eleanor still did not turn her head. She let the silence stretch. Let it sit on top of Dale's joke. Let his joke get heavy in the heat. Because silence is the one thing men like Dale Kramer do not know how to spend. "You put a $140,000 combine on that corner," Dale finally said. "You'd have it tiled and planted by October. You know that." She did know that. She also knew the loan papers were sitting in his glove box because the Pritchetts had told their wives he shouldn't sign them, which meant Dale didn't actually own that combine yet. He was just renting his confidence. "Cattle work," Eleanor said. That was all. 2 words. Dale opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Cattle work," he repeated, slow, like he was tasting something he did not like. "That's what I said." The Pritchetts stopped grinning. Dale tapped the steering wheel, once, twice, then put the truck in gear. "Suit yourself, Mrs. Whitcomb." He pulled away. Gravel popped, dust rose. The Brahmins did not even lift their heads. Eleanor watched the truck until it was past the first bend. Then she said quietly to no one, "I always do." The house was a quarter-mile back, white clapboard, green shutters, a wraparound porch that her husband Roland had rebuilt the summer he turned 45. He had measured every board twice, sworn under his breath, hit his thumb with the hammer and refused to admit it. He had been dead for 2 years. She walked the gravel road slow. Her knees did not like hurrying anymore. The flannel shirt flapped a little in a wind that was not really there. Inside the kitchen was cool. The kitchen was always cool. Roland had built it on the north side of the house on purpose. Said the kitchen was the heart, and a heart should never overheat. She poured coffee from the pot she had made at 5, sat down at the table, looked at the chair across from her. It was empty. It had been empty for 2 years, and still every morning she set out 2 cups, then poured one back into the pot before she sat down. Some mornings are like that, the ones where the body keeps doing what the heart has not agreed to stop. She took the index card out of her apron pocket, 3 by 5, yellowed at the edges. Her own handwriting from 16 years ago, copied from her father-in-law's pencil marks. 60 feet in from the property line. Drilled, 1961. Raymond Cutter, Harlem County. Casing sound as of 1986. She had read that card maybe 5 times since 1987. She read it again now, and she remembered. She had been 24 years old when she came to Kansas, a little town in Missouri, the kind of town nobody drives through on purpose. Her mother was sick, her father was tired. There was a man who knew Roland Whitcomb. Roland was looking for a wife. Roland was not handsome, but he was honest, and in 1959, honest was enough. She got on a bus. She arrived on a Tuesday in March. Snow still in the ditches. The Whitcomb farm was 32 acres bigger than she had pictured. The house was smaller. The mother-in-law looked at her like she was an insurance form that had not been filled out correctly. But Asa Whitcomb, Roland's father. Asa took one look at her standing in the front parlor with her cardboard suitcase, and he said, "You hungry?" That was the first thing anyone said to her in Kansas. You hungry. Not who are your people. Not how much schooling did you have. Not can you cook. You hungry. She nodded. He went to the kitchen and made her a fried egg sandwich with too much butter. That was the moment she decided she would stay. Not because of Roland, because of his father. Asa Whitcomb taught her how to read the soil. He taught her to walk a field after a rain and feel where the water sat. He taught her to listen to a creek in March and know what it would do in July. He taught her that land was not something you owned. It was something you were allowed to keep for a little while if you did not lie to it. Roland was a good man, but Roland believed in machines. Asa believed in God and dirt. That was the difference. That was always the difference. And Asa knew it. Which is why on a February night in 1987, with snow blowing sideways past the kitchen window, and Roland upstairs, already asleep, Asa Whitcomb leaned across the table and said something he had never said to his own son. "Eleanor, listen to me." She was 52 then. Asa was 68. The radio was playing a weather forecast nobody liked. Don't ever sell that northeast corner. Don't ever let anyone tile it. Don't ever let anyone drill on it. She had asked why. He had looked at the window for a long time. Long enough that the radio went from the weather to a seed corn commercial. Long enough that the kitchen clock ticked twice in the silence between them. Then he said, "There's water under there. Good water. The kind that comes up." She had not understood. Not really. She had asked why he was not telling Roland. Asa looked at her. His eyes were the color of river ice in March. "My boy trusts machines," he said. "You trust the Lord and the land. That's the difference." He never spoke of it again. Not once. In 14 years. She carried the words the way you carry a folded piece of paper in your shirt pocket. Not looking at it every day. Just knowing it was there. Asa died on a Tuesday in March of 2001. He was 82. The ground was still frozen. The funeral home had to wait 11 days to bury him because the cemetery on the east side of the county was solid clay down to a depth that made the backhoe operator shake his head and walk off twice. She remembered standing at the graveside in a black wool coat that did not fit anymore, looking south toward the farm, thinking, "I still don't know what you meant." 4 months later, Roland was hauling hay on the south field. 88 degrees, clear sky. He stopped the tractor at the end of the row, climbed down, took 2 steps, and fell. His heart had quit on him. He was 66 years old. The neighbor's boy found him an hour later. The tractor was still idling. Eleanor lost both men in one summer. She did not cry at Roland's funeral. She had used up all her tears for Asa already. Or maybe she was saving them for a winter when she would need them more. After the service, after the casseroles, after the last neighbor went home, she had walked upstairs and opened the gray metal filing cabinet in the mudroom. The one with the broken drawer pull. You had to lift and pull at the same time. She found the notebook page in the bottom drawer, tucked behind a manila folder labeled County Correspondence 1979 to 1984. Asa's pencil handwriting, faint. 60 feet in from the property line, drilled 1961, Raymond cutter, casing sound as of 1986. She had folded it, put it in her apron pocket, and told nobody for 2 years. Now she sat at the kitchen table on a July morning in 2003, the card in her hand, Roland gone 2 years, Asa gone 2 years, the Brahmins clearing brush on a corner of land nobody else believed in. The phone rang. She let it ring 3 times before she picked up. Mama? Adelaide, her daughter, 41 years old, lived in Wichita, an accountant for a mid-size firm, married a man named Curtis, who Eleanor had only met twice. Adelaide, Mama, I saw the cattle truck on your road last week. Mrs. Pritchett told her sister-in-law, who told my hairdresser. What are you doing? Working. Working what? My land. A pause. Mama, you're 68 years old. You don't have to do this. Sell the back 40, come to Wichita. Curtis's mother has a guest house. Eleanor closed her eyes. Curtis's mother had a guest house, with pink curtains, and a clock that chimed every 15 minutes, and a daughter-in-law who treated Eleanor like a casserole that had arrived at the wrong potluck. I'm not coming to Wichita, Adelaide. Mama, I'm not. You're going to break yourself on that ground. Maybe. That's not funny. I wasn't trying to be. Silence. Long silence. Long enough that Eleanor could hear the refrigerator hum. Mama, I'm not having this fight again. Then don't. Click. Eleanor set the phone in the cradle, looked at it, sighed. The fight had started 2 years ago, 3 weeks after Roland's funeral. Adelaide had driven up from Wichita on a Saturday morning with a folder. A folder, like Eleanor was a client. Inside the folder was an offer from a land company, $348,000 for the back 120 acres. Above market, Adelaide had said, Daddy would have wanted this, so you don't have to worry. Eleanor had set the folder on the kitchen table, slid it back across. No. Mama, Curtis Jr. is starting at K-State in the fall. The tuition alone. No. Mama, listen to me. I said no, Adelaide. And then Adelaide had said the thing Eleanor had not stopped hearing in 2 years. You love this land more than you love your own family. Eleanor had not answered, because the answer was complicated, because the answer was no, because the answer was also yes, in a way Adelaide did not yet have the years to understand. Adelaide had taken her folder and driven back to Wichita that same afternoon. They had spoken on the phone maybe a dozen times in 2 years. Birthday, Christmas, the day Vera was diagnosed. Never about anything that mattered. Vera. Eleanor put her coffee down. She had to call Vera today. Vera May Llewellyn, born Vera May Hadley, was Eleanor's younger sister. 64 years old. Lived in Topeka in a tidy brick house she had bought herself with the money from her teaching pension. Never married, never wanted to. Read 3 books a week. Had a cat named Mr. Eisenhower. 6 weeks ago, Vera had been diagnosed with breast cancer. Stage 1. Caught early. The doctors used the word manageable. Vera had used the word manageable back at them like she was returning a sweater that did not fit. Eleanor drove down to Topeka every Tuesday, sat with her sister through chemotherapy, held her hand, read to her from a book of Mary Oliver poems Vera kept on the side table. Today was Wednesday, so she would call. She dialed. Vera picked up on the second ring. Eleanor. Vera. How was the drive home yesterday? Fine. Cattle were out when I got back. Took an hour to push them in. The Brahmins behaving better than the neighbors. Vera laughed. It was a thin laugh. The chemo had taken some weight off her, but the laugh was still hers. Dale Kramer come by again. This morning. What did he say? He called my pasture a petting zoo. A long pause. Then Vera said, Eleanor. Don't let Adelaide become Mama. Eleanor sat up straight. What? You heard me? Vera, you heard me, sister. We didn't speak to Mama for the last 4 years of her life. 4 years. And then she was gone and there was no fixing it. You and Adelaide have had 2 years. Don't let it be 4. Eleanor stared at the wall. She called me this morning. Did you fight? No. Did you talk? No. Then call her back. Vera, call her back, Eleanor. I'm not asking. I'm telling. I don't know how much time I have. Don't waste yours pretending you do. Eleanor closed her eyes. I'll think about it. You'll do more than think. Vera, I love you. I love you too. She hung up, sat at the table, did not move for a long time. Outside, a meadowlark started up, then stopped, then started again. She thought about Mama. Mama had been a hard woman, not cruel, hard. The kind of hard that comes from raising 5 children on a sharecropper's wage in the Missouri bottoms. Mama did not say, I love you. Mama said, did you eat? Which was the same thing if you knew how to listen. Eleanor had stopped speaking to Mama in 1971, over what she could no longer remember exactly. Something about Roland, something about money, something Mama had said about Eleanor's choices that had cut deeper than Mama probably meant. 4 years later, Mama died in her sleep. Eleanor had driven down for the funeral and stood at the grave and felt nothing but a hollow ringing in her ears. She had promised herself she would never do that to her own daughter, and here she was, doing it. She picked up the phone, put it down, picked it up again, put it down. The screen door slapped. She jumped. Mrs. Whitcomb, Pastor Silas Holloway's voice. She got up, wiped her hands on her apron, though her hands were clean. In the kitchen, Pastor. He came through the dining room, 65 years old, tall and thin the way a willow is thin, wore the same gray suit every Wednesday. His wife, Marjorie, had passed 3 years before Roland, and Silas had not changed his routine by a single hour since. He had been Asa Whitcomb's closest friend for 41 years. He stopped in the kitchen doorway, looked at her. Eleanor. Sit down, Silas. You all right? Sit down. He sat. She poured him coffee, set it in front of him, sat down across from him in Roland's chair, which she had not sat in since the funeral. She put the index card on the table between them. Silas looked at it, looked at her. His face did not change, but his eyes did. Eleanor, you know what this is. I know what it might be. Silas, I think it's time. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into the inside pocket of his gray suit jacket and brought out an envelope, cream-colored, sealed with wax. The wax was the color of dried blood. He set it on the table next to the index card. Eleanor stared at it. He gave you that 2 weeks before he died. In 2001. In 2001. And you've kept it. I've kept it. Why didn't you tell me? Because Asa said you'd come to me when you were ready. He said, don't push her, Silas. She'll know. Eleanor's eyes filled. She did not let the tears fall. She had not let tears fall in this kitchen in 2 years, and she was not going to start today. What's in it? I don't know. You didn't open it. He told me not to. And you listened. I always listened to Asa. So did you. Eleanor reached out, picked up the envelope. The wax seal was a small, simple cross. Asa's hand. She knew it. She broke the seal. A single sheet of notebook paper. Narrow blue lines, red margin, Asa's handwriting in pencil. Dated February 15th, 2001. She read it. Once, then again. Her hand began to shake. She set the paper down. Pastor Holloway waited. She slid it across to him. He read it. He set it down. He said, "Oh, Asa." Eleanor closed her eyes. She could see him. Asa, standing in this same kitchen, writing this letter at this same table, 3 weeks before he died, knowing he was dying, knowing she would need it, knowing exactly which year and which drought and which neighbor's pickup truck would push her to come find it. She could see him. She opened her eyes. She read the letter out loud. To Silas, to the empty chair across from her, to Asa. Eleanor, if you are reading this, you are in trouble. The kind of trouble that comes from the sky not opening when it should. Go find the well. The card has the numbers. The numbers do not lie. But do not go alone. Take with you the person you most need to make peace with. The well will not give its water to one. It gives to two. That is how it was drilled. That is how it must be opened. I love you, daughter. Asa. She set the letter down. She looked at Silas. Silas looked at her. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Silas said very softly, "Who do you need to make peace with, Eleanor?" She did not have to think. "Adelaide," Silas nodded. "Then call her." Eleanor sat very still. Outside, the meadowlark sang again. The Brahmans were still moving through the brush on the northeast corner, slow and steady, pushing aside honey locust, trampling sumac, opening by inches a ground that had been closed for 30 years. Asa had known. Asa had known she would buy cattle that could clear it. Asa had known she would refuse the combine. Asa had known she would fight with her daughter and not know how to stop fighting. Asa had known. Eleanor stood up, walked to the wall phone, picked up the receiver. Her hand was steady now. She dialed. It rang. It rang. It rang. "Hello, Adelaide." A pause. "Mama, come home." "Mama, Come home, Adelaide." "I'm not asking. I'm asking." A long silence. Then her daughter's voice, smaller than Eleanor had heard it in years. "When?" "This weekend." "Mama, there's something This weekend, Adelaide." Another silence. Then, "Okay, Mama, I'll come." Eleanor hung up the phone. She did not turn around right away. She stood at the wall, her hand still on the receiver, and let the kitchen settle. Behind her, Silas said, "You all right?" "No." "Eleanor." "I'm not all right, Silas. I haven't been all right since they put Asa in the ground, but I'm doing it anyway." He stood up, crossed the kitchen, put a hand on her shoulder, the way her father used to, the way Asa used to. "That's the only kind of all right that counts, Eleanor." She nodded, did not turn around. He let himself out the back door. The screen slapped twice. Eleanor stood at the phone a long time. Then she walked to the window, looked out toward the northeast corner. The Brahmins were a slow, dark line against the green, pushing into the brush, patient, hungry, the way creatures move when they have been promised nothing but trust their work to provide. She put her hand flat against the glass. The glass was warm. The morning had become afternoon and she had not noticed. Somewhere under that brush line 60 feet in from the property line, there was an iron cap, set into the ground by a man named Raymond Cutter, closed by Asa Whitcomb in 1961, untouched for 42 years, and underneath that cap somewhere there was water. She turned away from the window, picked up the index card from the table, picked up the letter from the table, folded them together, put them in her apron pocket. The card and the letter rested against her hip the way Asa's voice had rested in her memory for 16 years. Quiet, steady, waiting. That night, Eleanor did not sleep. She lay in the bed she had shared with Roland for 42 years. The mattress still sagged on his side. She had never gotten around to flipping it. Maybe she never would. The ceiling fan turned. Slow, tired, older than her marriage. She thought about Adelaide driving up the highway. She thought about Vera in Topeka, asleep in a chair with Mr. Eisenhower on her lap. She thought about Asa 3 weeks before he died, sitting at her kitchen table writing a letter he knew she would not open for 2 years. How does a man know? That was the question that would not let her sleep. How does a man sitting at a table in February of 2001 know that his daughter-in-law will be in this exact kind of trouble in the summer of 2003? How does he know which drought, which neighbor, which truck? He didn't know, she told herself. He just trusted. Asa had trusted the way other people pray, steady, without expecting an answer. He had written, "If you are reading this, you are in trouble," the way a man writes, "The sun will rise tomorrow." Not because he saw it, because he knew it. She turned onto her side, looked at the empty pillow. Roland had slept on his back, mouth slightly open, snored like a stalled engine. She used to elbow him. He used to grunt, roll over, start again. She would give anything to elbow him tonight. Anything. She closed her eyes. She opened them. She got up. 3 a.m. The house was quiet the way only farmhouses are quiet, not silent. The refrigerator hummed. The wood ticked. The wind moved a loose board on the back porch the same way it had moved that same board since 1978. She went downstairs, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table. The letter and the index card were still in her apron pocket, hanging on the hook by the back door. She did not take them out. She just looked at the apron. And she thought about the day she found the card. April 2001, 3 weeks after Asa's funeral. Snow gone, but the ground still soft. Roland's still alive then. Still in his chair in the front room watching the news with the volume too loud. She had gone into the mudroom alone, opened the filing cabinet, the one with the broken drawer pull. She had been looking for the deed. She found the deed. She also found the notebook page. She had carried it to the window, read it again. Felt her knees go a little loose. Sat down on the cold linoleum floor. The page in her hand. Asa's pencil marks, 60 feet in. She had not told Roland. That was the part that ached the most now. She had not told Roland. Why? She had asked herself that question for 2 years, and she still did not have a clean answer. Because Asa had told her, and not him. That was part of it. Because she had wanted to keep something of Asa's just for herself. That was part of it too. Because she had known somehow that Roland would have wanted to dig it up right away. Drill it, test it, pump it, use it. And Asa had said casing sound as of 1986. He had not said use it now. He had said it is here. It is keeping. Leave it alone until it is needed. There is a difference between kept and abandoned. Most people never learn to feel that difference. Asa had taught her to feel it. So she had folded the page, copied the numbers onto an index card, hidden the original, put the card in the wooden box on her dresser, the box that had held Asa's cufflinks, and she had said nothing. For 2 years, Roland had died 4 months after his father. Never knowing, never asking, never needing to. And maybe Eleanor thought now in the dark kitchen at 3 a.m., maybe that had been a kind of kindness. Maybe Asa had given her the secret because he knew Roland's heart could not carry it. Maybe Asa had known about Roland's heart. She set the coffee down. She had never thought of that before. The clock above the stove ticked. She thought about how Asa had looked at Roland in those last months. The way a man looks at something he is about to lose and is trying not to flinch from. She had thought it was grief about his own dying. Now she wondered if it had been grief about his son's. Asa had always known things. Asa had always known. She finished her coffee. She did not sleep that night. But she did not need to. Some nights are not for sleeping. Some nights are for sitting in a kitchen and letting the dead come close enough to be felt without being seen. The sun came up at 5:40. Eleanor went out to feed the cattle. The next morning was a Thursday. She did chores, drove into town for feed, stopped at the post office. Mrs. Detweiler at the counter raised an eyebrow when she came in. Eleanor. Joyce. Heard you had visitors yesterday. Did I? Dale Kramer was telling it at the co-op last night. Was he? Said you were running a petting zoo. Eleanor took her mail. 2 bills, a church bulletin, a letter from Vera in Vera's careful schoolteacher script. Joyce. Yes. What does Dale Kramer say about himself when nobody's listening? Joyce Detweiler blinked. Then she laughed. A small, surprised laugh. I'll have to think about that, Eleanor. You do that. Eleanor walked out, got in the truck, sat in the driver's seat, did not start the engine. She watched the courthouse square. 2 old men on the bench by the war memorial, a boy on a bicycle, a pickup with a hay rake in the bed. This was her town. She had moved here in 1959, a stranger from Missouri. She had buried a father-in-law here, a husband here, a baby here in 1961 that nobody knew about except Asa. The baby. She had not thought about the baby in a long time. A girl. 11 weeks. There was a name she had picked out and never spoken. There was a tiny pink-stitched blanket Eleanor had finished crocheting 2 days before the bleeding started. There was a grave behind the Methodist church under a small stone that said only Baby Girl Whitcomb. 1961, because she had not been able to make herself put the name on the stone. The name had stayed in her mouth. Even now, she had told Roland. Of course she had told Roland. He had cried, once, in the truck on the way home from the hospital, and then he had not spoken of it again because that was how Roland had been raised and because she had not pushed him. She had told Asa much later. A spring evening in 1969, they were mending fence on the South Line. He had sat down on a fence post and listened. Then he had said, "Some children come to us to teach us a thing and then go home. That doesn't make them less ours. It makes them more." She had cried then, for the first time about the baby. Asa had not touched her. He had just sat on the fence post and waited until she was finished. She had never told her sister. She had never told Adelaide. She had never told anyone else ever. 42 years. Two living souls had known. One was dead. The other was her. She started the truck, drove home. The land slid past the window the way it always did. Familiar in the way breath is familiar. You do not notice it until you cannot have it anymore. When she pulled into the driveway, there was a car she did not recognize. Late model sedan, out-of-county plates, Topeka. A woman was sitting on the porch step. Eleanor's heart did the thing hearts do when they recognize someone before the eyes do. It was Vera. Eleanor parked, got out slow, walked across the gravel. "Vera." Vera looked up, smiled. The smile was tired. The smile was hers. "Hello, sister. You're supposed to be in Topeka. I drove myself." "Vera." "It's 2 hours, Eleanor. I'm not dead. You shouldn't be driving. And you shouldn't be running cattle through 43 acres of honey locust at 68. But here we are." Eleanor sat down on the step beside her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Vera said, "You called Adelaide." "How do you know?" "Because I called Adelaide last night." Eleanor turned to look at her. "You did what?" "I called my niece, Eleanor. I told her to get in her car this weekend and come see her mother, and not to make me drive up there to slap some sense into her." "Vera." "What?" "You can't just—" "I can. I did. I'm 64 years old and I have cancer, and I am done waiting for you two to figure it out on your own." Eleanor stared at her sister. Then slowly she began to laugh. It started small, then it grew. It became the kind of laugh that has nowhere else to go. A laugh that comes from too many nights of not crying. Vera watched her, patient. Then Vera started laughing too. The two of them sat on the porch step and laughed in the noon sun until Eleanor had to wipe her eyes with the corner of her apron. "Vera." Thank you." "Don't thank me. I'm thanking you anyway." Eleanor. Show me the letter." Eleanor went inside, came back out with the envelope, the wax seal already broken. Vera read it once, read it again, folded it carefully along the original creases, handed it back. Asa knew. He knew. He always knew. He did. Vera looked out across the yard, toward the brush line on the northeast corner. "Eleanor." What's in the well?" Eleanor was quiet for a long time. "Water," she said finally. "I hope. Just water." Vera did not look at her. Vera said, "You don't think that's all, do you?" Eleanor did not answer. Because she didn't. Because the way Asa had written that letter, "Do not go alone. The well will not give its water to one," did not sound like a man talking about gallons per minute. It sounded like a man talking about something else. A man talking about something he had buried. Vera stayed for supper. They ate at the kitchen table. Eleanor made chicken and dumplings the way their mother used to. Vera ate slow, but she ate. After supper, Vera washed the dishes and Eleanor dried. It was the first time they had done that together in almost 10 years. When the last plate was put away, Vera dried her hands on the towel and said, "I'm staying tonight." "Vera, you don't have to." "I'm staying tonight, Eleanor." "All right. And then I'm driving back tomorrow because I have a chemo appointment Friday morning that I am not missing, because I have been very polite to it so far, and I am not going to start being rude now." Eleanor laughed again. "All right, sister." She made up the spare bed, the one in the small room at the top of the stairs. The room that had been Adelaide's when Adelaide was a girl. The wallpaper still had the small blue flowers Adelaide had picked when she was 9. Vera sat on the edge of the bed. Eleanor stood in the doorway. "Sister," Vera said. You did a good thing today." "What thing?" "Calling her." Eleanor did not answer for a moment. "I don't know if it was a good thing yet." "It was." "Vera." "Eleanor." I don't know how to be her mother anymore." The words came out before Eleanor knew she was going to say them. Vera looked up at her. "You think you forgot? I think I never knew." "Eleanor." "She came out of me and I held her and I fed her and I taught her to read and I sent her to school and I sent her to college and I let her marry a man I didn't like and I never once stopped her from anything she wanted to do. And then her daddy died and her granddaddy died in the same summer and I closed up. I closed up, Vera. I closed up like a hand and she was on the outside of the fist." Vera nodded slowly. "Then open the hand, Eleanor. It's been 2 years. Then open it slow." Eleanor leaned against the doorframe. "I'm scared." "I know. I haven't been scared of anything in 20 years. I know. I'm scared, Vera." "I know, sister. I know." Vera held out her hand. Eleanor crossed the room, sat down on the bed, took her sister's hand. They sat like that for a long time. Two old women in a child's bedroom with blue flowers on the wallpaper and a cancer between them and a daughter coming home in 3 days. Eleanor woke before sunrise. The house was still. Vera was still asleep down the hall. Eleanor went down to the kitchen, started coffee, stood at the window. The northeast corner was a dark line against the gray sky. The Brahmins were lying down somewhere in the brush. She could not see them, but she could feel them. The way you feel cattle on a place. A weight that is not heavy. A presence. She thought about the letter. Take with you the person you most need to make peace with. Adelaide was coming Saturday. That was 2 days away. In 2 days she would stand at the brush line with her daughter for the first time in 2 years, and they would walk into that corner together. Or they would not. Eleanor did not know yet. She poured her coffee. She sat down at the table. The phone rang, 5:50 in the morning. She picked it up before the second ring so it would not wake Vera. "Hello? Mama." Adelaide, crying. Eleanor could hear it under the voice. "Adelaide, what is it?" "What?" "Mama, I have to tell you something." "Tell me." Curtis and I, a long sob. "Adelaide, take a breath. Take a breath, baby. Mama, Curtis left me 6 weeks ago. He left me, Mama. He left me for a woman from his office. And I lost my job last week. They cut the whole department, and I've been living in a hotel, and I didn't tell you because I was so ashamed, Mama. I was so ashamed." Eleanor closed her eyes. The kitchen was very quiet. The coffee cup was warm in her hand. Somewhere upstairs, her sister was sleeping. Outside the window, her cattle were lying down in a field that her father-in-law had told her to keep. In her pocket, a letter from a dead man told her to take with her the person she most needed to make peace with. And on the other end of the line, her only daughter was crying. Eleanor opened her eyes. She said, "Adelaide." "Yes, Mama." "You come home today. Not Saturday. Today." "Mama." "Today, Adelaide." "I'm in the car already, Mama." Eleanor sat up. "You're what?" "I'm in the car, Mama. I started driving 3 hours ago. I'm an hour out. I was going to wait until I was closer to call, but I couldn't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mama." Eleanor put her hand over her mouth. She did not cry, but it was a near thing. "Adelaide." "Yes, Mama." "Drive careful. The deer come out at dawn on the county road." "Yes, Mama." And Adelaide, "Yes, Mama." Your bed is made. A small sound, half a sob, half a laugh. "Thank you, Mama. I'll see you in an hour." Eleanor hung up the phone. She stood at the kitchen counter. She looked at the second coffee cup on the table, the one she still set out every morning for Roland, the one she had been pouring back into the pot for 2 years. She picked it up. She did not pour it back this time. She set it across from her own, on Roland's old place at the table. Not for Roland, for Adelaide. She sat down. The sun was just coming over the eastern fence line. The light caught the edge of the index card she had left on the table next to the letter. 60 feet in from the property line. Outside, a meadowlark called. Eleanor closed her eyes. She did not pray exactly. She was never sure what praying was exactly. She just said very quietly to the morning and to the man who was no longer there to hear her, "Asa, she's coming home. You were right. You were right about everything." She opened her eyes. The coffee in the second cup was steaming. The Brahmins were beginning to stand up out in the field. The house was waking up. and somewhere up the county road a car was driving fast toward a driveway it had not turned into in 2 years. Eleanor folded her hands on the table. She waited. She was good at waiting. She had been waiting for 16 years. An hour was nothing. The car came up the driveway at 6:47. Eleanor heard it before she saw it. Tires on gravel. Slower than they should have been. Like the driver was not sure she still had permission to come this far. Eleanor stood on the porch. She did not go down the steps. She wanted Adelaide to walk to her. Because that was the thing. That was the thing she had decided sometime between the phone call and now. Some distances you have to let the other person close themselves. Otherwise it is not closing. It is just walking. The car stopped. A blue sedan. Dust on the wheel wells. A small dent on the passenger door that Eleanor had not seen before. The back seat full of cardboard boxes. A pillow wedged against the rear window. Adelaide got out. 41 years old. Hair pulled back tight. The kind of tight that means a woman has been holding her face together for a long time. Khaki pants. A blouse that used to fit better. No makeup. She stood at the open car door. She looked at her mother. Eleanor looked at her daughter. Neither of them moved. Then Adelaide closed the car door, and she started walking. She made it 3 steps before her face broke. She made it 5 steps before she was running. She made it to the bottom of the porch and stopped there, because that was as far as she could come without being invited. Eleanor came down the steps, met her at the bottom, held out her arms. Adelaide fell into them the way a child falls, the way only a daughter can fall into a mother. Not because she had to, because she had finally given herself permission. Eleanor held her. She did not say anything. She just held her. Because anything she said right now would be the wrong thing. And silence is never the wrong thing if you mean it. Adelaide cried into her shoulder, 41 years old and crying like she was 9. Eleanor smelled her daughter's hair, the same shampoo Adelaide had used since high school. Some smells outlast the years that made them. The Brahmins were watching them from the near pasture, slow, curious, the way cattle watch when something is happening they have not been asked to understand. When Adelaide could finally speak, she said, "Mama, I know. I'm so tired, Mama. I know, baby. I don't know what I'm doing. You came home. That's what you're doing." Adelaide cried harder. Eleanor held tighter. Behind them, the screen door opened. Vera stood on the porch in her bathrobe. She did not come down. She did not call out. She just put one hand on the porch rail and watched. And when Eleanor looked up over Adelaide's shoulder and met her sister's eyes, Vera nodded once, slow, like a benediction. And then Vera went back inside to put on coffee. They ate breakfast at the kitchen table. 3 women, the first time in 12 years. Vera made the eggs, Eleanor made the biscuits. Adelaide sat at the table and tried to remember how to be in a kitchen that was not her own and not a hotel. Nobody talked about Curtis. Nobody talked about the job. Nobody talked about the boxes in the back of the sedan. They talked about Vera's cat. They talked about the price of feed. They talked about Mrs. Detweiler at the post office and the way she had looked at Eleanor the day before. They did not talk about the letter. Not yet. Eleanor was waiting. She did not know what she was waiting for, but she knew. The way she had known when to read Asa's index card. The way she had known when to call Adelaide. The way she had known in February of 1987 that the man across the table from her was telling her something she would have to carry for the rest of her life. She knew. After breakfast, Vera said, "I need to drive home. The cat's been alone 2 nights, and he holds grudges." Adelaide laughed, a small wet laugh, the first real laugh she had let out in months. Eleanor walked her sister to the car. Vera turned at the driver's side door. "Eleanor, whatever it is, do it together, the 2 of you." "I know." He said as much. "I know." Vera reached out, put her hand on Eleanor's cheek, the way their mother had done. Once, when Eleanor was 10 years old and had brought home a bird with a broken wing, the wing had not healed. The bird had died. Mama had put her hand on Eleanor's cheek and said some things you love. You cannot save baby girl. You just love them while they're here. Eleanor closed her eyes. Vera said, "Call me Sunday." "I'll call you Sunday. Promise." I promise. Vera got in the car, drove away. Eleanor stood in the driveway until the dust settled. Then she turned and walked back to the house. Adelaide was waiting on the porch. Eleanor said, "Get your boots." Adelaide looked up. "What?" "Get your boots, Adelaide. We're going to work." The brush was thicker than it had looked from the road. Adelaide stood at the edge of the cleared track the cattle had made, and she stared at the wall of sumac and honey locust, and she said, "Mama, what are we doing?" "We're clearing it." "With what?" "With the rhino." "The what?" "The brush cutter, on the tractor. You used to ride on it with your daddy when you were 6. "I don't remember that." "You wouldn't. You were 6. Eleanor climbed up onto the John Deere, the 4440. The tractor Roland had bought used in 1981 and never replaced because it still runs true. She held out her hand. Adelaide hesitated. "Mama, I haven't been on a tractor since I was 16. "Then it's been long enough." "I'll fall off." "You won't." "I'll fall off and break my hip, and then you'll have 2 of us to take care of." "Adelaide." "What?" "Get on the tractor." Adelaide got on the tractor. She sat behind her mother on the fender, the way she used to sit behind her father. She put her hands on her mother's shoulders. Eleanor felt them shake. Eleanor said, "Hold tight." "Mama?" "Hold tight, Adelaide. We're not going fast, but we're going." She put the tractor in gear. They moved into the brush. The rhino took the sumac without complaint. Eleanor could feel the larger stems as shutters through the tractor frame. Brief resistances that the blade resolved with a sound like a heavy door slamming somewhere underground. She made the first pass slow. Then she made the second pass faster. She was teaching her daughter the rhythm. The way Asa had taught her the rhythm. The way Asa had taught her everything. Adelaide started to laugh somewhere on the third pass. A surprise laugh, like she had not expected her body to remember a thing her mind had forgotten. She shouted into Eleanor's ear over the engine, "Mama, Mama, this is fun." Eleanor smiled. She did not turn her head, but she smiled. "I know it is. Why didn't you tell me?" "You didn't ask." They worked for 2 hours. By 10 o'clock, the sun was high enough that Eleanor stopped the tractor in the shade of the bur oak at the corner of the lot, and they climbed down. Adelaide was sweating. Her shirt stuck to her back. Her hair had come out of its tight knot and was hanging around her face in wet ropes. She looked younger. She looked like the girl Eleanor remembered. Adelaide sat down in the grass. Eleanor sat down beside her. They did not speak for a long time. Then Adelaide said, "Mama." Curtis isn't coming back." "I know." "I knew for a year, maybe longer. I kept telling myself it was nothing." "I knew her name, the woman from his office. I knew her name 8 months ago. I just didn't let myself say it out loud." Eleanor did not say anything. She let her daughter talk. Adelaide picked up a piece of dry grass, twisted it, broke it, threw it down. "I lost the job because the whole department got cut. That part is true, but I would have lost it anyway. I haven't been able to focus in months. I made a mistake on a client's quarterly that cost them $11,000 in April. I covered it. I covered it out of my own savings. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell Curtis. I didn't tell anyone." "Adelaide, I'm broke, Mama. I have $900 in my checking account. I have credit card debt I can't say out loud. Curtis Jr. is starting his 2nd year at K-State, and I don't know how I'm going to pay tuition." "Adelaide, I came here because I have nowhere else to go." "That's the truth, Mama. That's the whole truth. I'm not here because I missed you. I'm here because I have nowhere else." Eleanor was very still. The wind moved through the brush they had cut. The Brahmans were drifting back. One of the older cows came up to the cleared edge and looked at them with mild interest, and then walked on. Eleanor reached out, took her daughter's hand, said, "Adelaide, you came home because you had nowhere else." "Yes, that's what home is, baby." Adelaide looked at her. Tears came down her face in 2 clean lines. "What?" "That's what home is. The place you go when you have nowhere else. That's the whole point of it. That's the only point of it." "Mama." "Adelaide, I said the worst thing to you 2 years ago. I know what you said. I said you love this land more than you love me." I remember. It wasn't true. It was a little true. Adelaide looked up sharp. Eleanor smiled. Sad. Small. It was a little true, baby, but not the way you meant. I loved the land because the land was how I kept everyone. Your daddy, your granddaddy, the mother I left in Missouri, the baby I lost in 1961. Adelaide froze. What baby? Eleanor closed her eyes. She had not meant to say it. She had not meant to say it like that. In a brush lot, on a Friday morning, with her daughter sitting next to her in dirty jeans. But it was out now. Some things, once they're out, do not go back. I lost a baby, Adelaide. Before you. A girl, 11 weeks, 1961. She's buried behind the Methodist church under a stone that just says, Baby Girl Whitcomb. Adelaide stared at her mother. Mama. I never told you. I never told anyone. Except your granddaddy. He's the only one who knew. Mama. I didn't want you to grow up with that shadow. I didn't want you to feel like you came after a loss. I wanted you to feel like you came first. So I never said her name. I never put her name on the stone. I never said her name out loud ever. What was her name? Eleanor looked at her daughter. You sure you want to know? Yes. It was going to be May. After me. Eleanor May the 2nd. I was going to call her May. Adelaide put her hand over her mouth. Eleanor said, I had a sister in a way. You had one too. I just didn't have the words for it. Not then. Not for 42 years. Adelaide started to cry again. The quiet kind. The kind that comes out of a place that has been closed a long time. She put her head on her mother's shoulder. Eleanor put her arm around her. They sat in the grass at the edge of a half-cleared brush lot in the middle of Kansas in the heat of an October morning. Two women, one carrying 42 years of silence she had never been able to set down. The other carrying a marriage that had ended in another woman's bed and a checking account with $900 in it. The Brahmans grazed. The wind moved. The shadow of the bur oak shifted on the ground. And Eleanor said quietly into her daughter's hair, We're going to be all right, baby. Mama, I don't know. I do. I know. We're going to be all right. That afternoon, they went back to work. Eleanor drove the tractor. Adelaide rode the fender. They cleared another half-acre before the sun got too low. They were on the 4th pass of the last section when the rhino struck something that wasn't a root. The tractor bucked. Hard enough to lift the rear wheel. Eleanor killed the PTO, stopped the engine, sat for a moment in the sudden silence. Adelaide said, Mama, what was that? I don't know yet. Is it the well? Could be. Eleanor climbed down, walked into the cut brush, her boots finding soft, uneven ground where the root mass had been churned. She crouched down, pulled away a tangle of dead grass. And there beneath the dirt was something round, flat, metal. But it wasn't iron. It wasn't a cap. It was smaller than that. It was a tin box, maybe 8 inches across, 6 deep, rusted at the corners. The kind of tin a man might buy at a hardware store in 1960 to keep documents in. The kind of tin a man might bury in a place where he expected the right person to find it. Eleanor stared at it. Her hands did not move. Adelaide came up behind her. Mama, what is it? I don't know. Is it the well? No? Then what? Eleanor reached down, brushed more dirt away. She could see now that the tin was set in the ground deliberately, buried no more than 18 inches, just deep enough to hide, not deep enough to disappear. It was a hiding place. It was meant to be found. She pried it loose with her fingers. The lid was sealed with a layer of yellowed wax. Ace's hand. She knew it before she even broke the seal. She lifted the lid. Inside the tin was a single-bound notebook, cloth cover, faded blue, tied shut with a leather cord. She lifted it out. The notebook had not been disturbed in a very long time. She opened the cover. Ace's handwriting. But not the cramped, neat handwriting of his receipts and his lists. This was different. This was slanted, loose. The handwriting of a man writing for himself. The first page said June 14th, 1961. I am starting this because Pastor Holloway said I should. He said a man cannot carry a thing for 14 years without putting it down somewhere. So I am putting it down. Here. Eleanor's breath caught. She turned the page. Adelaide knelt beside her in the dirt. Mama, what does it say? What is it? It's a journal. It's your granddaddy's journal. I didn't know he kept a journal. Neither did I. Eleanor turned another page. Read. Read again. And her hand began to shake. Adelaide watched her mother's face change. Mama. What? What does it say? Eleanor read it out loud. Her voice was very quiet. June 14th, 1961. Clara would have been 36 years old today. I have not said her name out loud in 12 years. Not to anyone. Not to my second wife, may the Lord forgive me. Not to my son who does not know he had a sister. Not to anyone alive. Pastor Holloway says I should say it, so I am saying it here. Clara. Clara Whitcomb. My first wife. Born 1925. Died May 3rd, 1949. Age 24. Cause of death eclampsia in childbirth. Our daughter, also unnamed, died the same night. They are buried together in Riverside Cemetery in Coffeyville. I have not been to the grave since 1952. The Lord knows why. Eleanor stopped reading. She could not see the page. Adelaide was very still. Then Adelaide said in a voice that did not sound like her own, Granddaddy was married before. Yes. Daddy didn't know. No. Granddaddy never told him. No. Mama. Yes. Why? Eleanor closed the notebook, held it against her chest, looked out at the brush line. She said very slowly, because some pains a man has to carry alone to keep other people safe from carrying them. He thought he was being kind, Adelaide. He thought silence was kindness. That's how his generation was taught. That's how my generation was taught. Mama. It wasn't kindness, baby. It was loneliness. He was lonely his whole life and nobody knew. Mama. He told me about it, eventually, once, in 1969. I was crying about May. He sat down next to me on a fence post and he said some children come to us to teach us a thing and then go home. I thought he was just being kind. I didn't know. I didn't know he was talking about his own. Adelaide put a hand over her mouth. Eleanor opened the notebook again, turned the pages slowly. There were entries, dozens, spanning 38 years, June 14th every year, Clara's birthday, and May 3rd every year, the day she died. He had written to her every year, for 38 years, and then on the last page, dated February 2001, 3 weeks before Asa died, there was a different entry. Eleanor read it. Her hand started to shake again. Adelaide. Mama. Listen. She read. February 9th, 2001. I will not be here much longer. My heart knows what my body knows. So I am writing this last entry, and then I am going to bury this book in the brush by the well. I am going to bury it where Eleanor will find it, because Eleanor will find the well. She is the only one who will, and she will not find it alone. She will bring my granddaughter with her. I know this because I know Eleanor, and I know Adelaide. They are alike in the one way that matters. They both think they cannot forgive each other, and they are both wrong. Adelaide began to cry. Eleanor kept reading. Her voice barely held. Tell them, Eleanor. Tell them about the well. About the box I left under the cap in 1961. Clara's wedding ring is in that box. A lock of our baby's hair. A letter I wrote that night when she died, when we both died, when half of me died, and the other half had to keep walking. I put them in the well because I could not bury them in the ground that belonged to my second life. The well was mine. The well was where I kept her. The well is where I have kept her for 40 years. Eleanor stopped. The notebook trembled in her hands. Adelaide was crying without sound, the way a grown woman cries when she does not have any place left to put the crying. Eleanor read the last lines. Eleanor, when you find it, take Clara out, take her home, bury her properly in the churchyard next to where I will be. Tell Pastor Holloway, he will know what to do. He has known since 1949. He is the only one who ever did. And Eleanor, the baby, my baby girl, bury her next to your May. They have been alone long enough. Asa. Eleanor closed the notebook, put it in her lap, did not move. The sun was low now. The shadows of the brush were long across the cleared ground. The Brahmins were settling for the night, picking spots in the cleared corners, lying down one by one with the patient finality of creatures who have done a day's work. Adelaide leaned against her mother's shoulder. She said, "Mama." "Yes, baby." "Granddaddy lost a baby girl." "Yes." "And you lost a baby girl." "Yes." "And he knew you had?" "And you knew he had." "Almost." "Almost." "And neither of you said it." "Not all the way, not the whole truth." "Why?" Eleanor was quiet a long time. She said, "Because we were raised to carry it. We were taught that carrying it alone was love, that telling other people would make them carry it too. So we kept quiet, the both of us. He carried Clara. I carried May. We sat in the same kitchen for 32 years, and we never said either name out loud to each other." Adelaide cried harder. Eleanor put her arm around her. "Baby, baby, listen to me." "Mama, I don't want you to do that. Do you hear me? I don't want you to carry Curtis alone. I don't want you to carry the job alone. I don't want you to carry the debt alone. I don't want you to do what your granddaddy did. I don't want you to do what I did. Mama, tell me. Tell me everything. Tell me the worst of it. Tell me the part you're most ashamed of. Tell me the part you would not have told me yesterday. Because I am here, and I am not going anywhere. And there is nothing you can say to me that will make me love you less." Adelaide was sobbing now. She could not speak. Eleanor held her. She rocked her. The way she had rocked her when Adelaide was a baby and had a fever and would not sleep. The way her own mother had rocked her before everything went wrong between them. The way women have rocked their daughters since before there were words for it. After a long time, Adelaide whispered, "Mama, there were days I didn't want to wake up." Eleanor went very still. "When?" "3 weeks ago, in the hotel. I sat on the edge of the bed and I thought about how easy it would be not to be here anymore. And then I picked up the phone and asked the front desk to come empty the minibar. Because I didn't trust myself. Not with anything, not even the small things." "Adelaide." "I didn't do anything, Mama. I didn't. But I sat there a long time, and nobody knew. Nobody knows. I never told anyone." Eleanor pulled her daughter closer. She did not say, "Why didn't you call me?" She did not say, "How could you not tell me?" She said, "Baby." "Mama, you're telling me now." "Yes." "That's the part that counts. That's the part that counts, baby, that you're telling me now." Adelaide wept against her mother's shoulder. Eleanor wept too, for the first time in 2 years, for the first time since Roland's funeral, for the first time since Asa had been put in the ground. She wept for her daughter. She wept for Clara. She wept for May. She wept for the baby girl Whitcomb who had died in 1949 and never been named. She wept for every woman who had ever sat alone in a room and been too ashamed to call her mother. She wept until the sun was almost down. Then she stood up. She helped her daughter stand up. She tucked the notebook under her arm. She said, "Adelaide." "Yes, Mama. We're going back to the house. We're going to eat. We're going to call Pastor Holloway. And tomorrow we're going to come back here and we're going to find that cap. Together." "Yes, Mama. Because your granddaddy was right about one thing." "What?" "The well won't give its water to one. It only gives to two. That's how he drilled it. That's how he capped it. That's how it opens." Adelaide looked at her mother, in the last of the light, dust on her face, tears drying, hair come loose. She looked like Eleanor. Eleanor had never seen it before. Not this clearly. She looked exactly like Eleanor. Adelaide said, "Mama." "Yes." "I'm glad I came home." Eleanor took her hand. "I'm glad you came home too, baby." They walked back through the cleared brush together. The Brahmins watched them pass, their long, humped backs catching the last of the light, the way evening catches a herd that has done its work and earned its rest. The first stars were coming out over the eastern fence line, and in Eleanor's apron pocket, next to the letter and the index card, the journal sat warm against her hip. 42 years of a man's silence, finally spoken, finally heard, by two women, together, just the way he had asked. The next morning was Saturday. The cap was waiting. But before they went out to find it, there was one more thing Eleanor had to do. She picked up the phone. She dialed. Vera answered on the second ring. "Eleanor." "Sister." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." "Eleanor, I have to tell you something." "Tell me." Eleanor closed her eyes. She said, Vera, I lost a baby. In 1961. A girl. I named her May. I never told you. I never told anyone but Asa. I'm telling you now because I told Adelaide yesterday, and I don't want you to be the last one to know. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Vera said very softly, Oh, sister. I'm sorry I never told you. Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. I should have told you 42 years ago. You're telling me now. That's the part that counts. Eleanor began to cry again, quiet, steady. She said, I have to go now, Vera. We're going to find the well today. Eleanor, yes. Find it. I will. Find it. And then come tell me everything. I will. I love you, sister. I love you too. Eleanor hung up. She stood at the phone a long moment. Then she turned. Adelaide was standing in the kitchen doorway, dressed in old jeans and one of Eleanor's flannel shirts, hair pulled back, boots on, ready. Eleanor said, Come on, baby. I'm coming. Let's go find your granddaddy's well. They walked out the back door together. The Brahmans were already up, moving slow through the cleared corner, lifting their humped gray shoulders against the morning light. The sun was rising over the brush line, and somewhere 60 feet in from the property line under 42 years of dirt and grass and waiting the cap was where Asa had left it. Patient, quiet, about to be opened, by two, just as he had asked. They found the cap at 9 in the morning. Eleanor was on her knees in the cleared brush, her hands in the dirt, the short-handled spade beside her. Adelaide was crouching across from her, mirror to her mother. Same posture, same dirt on the same kind of jeans. The blade had clinked against something hard 10 minutes ago. Now they were brushing, by hand. Because some things you do not pry, you uncover. Eleanor's fingers found the edge first. A round rim, cast iron, cold even in the morning sun. She said very quietly, Adelaide. What? Come here. Adelaide moved around to her mother's side. Eleanor took her daughter's hand, pressed it down into the dirt, onto the iron. Adelaide drew in a sharp breath. Mama! It's the cap. It's the cap. It's right where he said it was. They cleared it together. Slow. The way you uncover something you do not want to startle. The circle grew under their hands, 18 inches across, then 24, then a full 36. The cap was thick, heavy, domed slightly in the center, a lip around the edge packed solid with 42 years of compressed earth. Eleanor scraped the face clean with the wire brush she had brought from the barn, tilted her head to catch the light. The lettering came up out of the rust. Cutter Supply 1921. Adelaide read it out loud. Cutter Supply 1921. Yes, that's the man your granddaddy wrote about. Yes. He drilled this in 1921. Yes. And your father-in-law capped it in 1961. Yes. And nobody has opened it since. Nobody. Mama. I know. Mama, my hands are shaking. I know, baby. So are mine. They sat back on their heels, looked at each other. 42 years of dirt. 2 women, 1 iron cap. Adelaide said, Should we open it now? Eleanor shook her head. Not yet. Why not? Because we need Pastor Holloway here. Why? Because he's the only other person who knew, since 1949. He's been carrying it with your granddaddy the whole time. He should be here when we open it. Adelaide nodded slow. You're right. I'm going to drive to town. You stay here. Don't touch it. Mama, I won't touch it. Just sit with it. Yes, Mama. Talk to him. Adelaide looked up. To who? To your granddaddy. He waited a long time for somebody to sit by this cap. Sit by it for him. Adelaide's eyes filled. Yes, Mama. Eleanor stood up, brushed the dirt from her knees, walked to the truck, drove to town slow. Like the road might shake the day apart if she went any faster. Pastor Silas Holloway was in his garden when she pulled up. Tomato vines almost done for the year. Late peppers still hanging. He was bent over with the careful, slow bending of a man who had stopped trusting his back to obey him. He looked up, saw her face, set down the basket of peppers. Eleanor, Silas, you found it. We found it. Both of you. Both of us. He crossed to the gate, wiped his hands on his trousers, said, I need 3 minutes to change my shirt. Take 5. I'll take 3. She waited in the truck. He came out in his gray suit, the same suit he wore every Wednesday, the same suit he had worn to Asa's funeral, the same suit she suspected he would be buried in someday. He got in the passenger side, closed the door, did not speak for a long time. Then he said, Eleanor. Did you find his journal? She glanced at him. How did you know? Because he told me in 1961 that he was going to write one. And he told me in 2001 that he was going to bury it. I have been waiting 42 years to find out if he did either. He did both, Silas. Pastor Holloway closed his eyes. His mouth moved without sound. Eleanor knew he was praying. She did not interrupt. She drove. The land slid past the windows the way it always did. Familiar, steady. The kind of familiar that does not need to be admired, only kept. When they pulled into the drive, Adelaide was sitting cross-legged in the dirt next to the cap. She had her hand on it. She was talking. Eleanor could not hear what she was saying. Adelaide looked up when the truck doors closed. Stood. Brushed the dirt off her jeans. Pastor Holloway walked across the cleared brush slowly. When he reached Adelaide, he stopped, looked at her, said, Granddaughter. Pastor, you have your grandfather's eyes. Adelaide's mouth trembled. Thank you. He would be proud of you for being here with your mother. He told me to come. I know he did. In the journal, he wrote that I would come. I know. Pastor Holloway looked down at the cap. Then he looked at Eleanor. Are you ready? As I'll ever be. Then let's open it. Eleanor brought the pry bar. She set the flat end against the edge of the cap, found the slight gap, did not force it. She remembered Asa teaching her this. Don't fight a stuck thing. Lean into it. Let it tell you when it's ready. She leaned, slowly. The cap shifted, a 1/4 inch, then a half, then it gave. The break of the seal was a soft sucking release, like the lid coming off something that had been closed a very long time. Not air rushing in, air coming out. The smell that reached them was not rot, not water, not anything dead. It was something older than any of those. A cool, still exhalation. The way a root cellar smells in April when you open it the first morning after winter. Undisturbed. Patient. The smell of a place that had been waiting without any particular urgency. Eleanor stopped, looked at Pastor Holloway. He nodded. She and Adelaide lifted the cap together. It was heavier than it looked. 80 pounds, maybe more. They set it aside in the grass. The shaft was stone-lined, dry, laid limestone in the same pale gray as the foundation of the barn. Each course fitted tight enough that you could see the hand behind it. Adelaide leaned over the opening. Mama, look how he laid it. I know. Granddaddy did this. Granddaddy did this. By hand. By hand. Eleanor got the flashlight from her jacket pocket, aimed it down. The waterline was maybe 15 feet below, flat, dark, a mirror sitting at the bottom of 100 years of limestone. The water was there. It had been there the whole time, but that was not what made Eleanor's hand shake. What made her hand shake was what she saw 2 feet below the rim of the cap, a small ledge, cut into the stone, almost invisible, and resting on the ledge was a box. Tin, maybe 6 inches square, the same maker as the journal box, Asa's hand. She had not seen it from above at first. She had to angle the flashlight, but it was there, right where the journal had said it would be. She said almost too quiet to hear Adelaide. Mama, I see it. Get the rope. Where? In the truck, behind the seat. There's a coil. Adelaide ran, came back with the rope. Eleanor tied a slow knot, the way Roland had taught her, the way Asa had taught him. She lowered a hook down, caught the box on the second try, drew it up, set it on the grass beside the cap. The three of them looked at it. Pastor Holloway said very softly, Eleanor. Silas, are you sure? He told me to. Are you sure? He told me to Silas. All right. She opened it. Inside was a wedding ring, plain gold, worn thin, Clara's. A small glass vial sealed with wax. Inside the vial, a curl of dark hair. Asa's daughters. The baby who never had a name. And a letter. Folded into thirds, cream paper, pencil. Asa's handwriting from 1961. 42 years old. Eleanor lifted it out. Her hands were steady now. She did not know why. Some hands choose their moments. She opened the letter. Read silently first, lips moving, the way her mother used to read. Then she said, looking at her daughter and at Pastor Holloway, "He wrote it the day he capped the well." "Read it, Mama." "You sure?" "Read it," Eleanor read. "To whoever finds this. If you are reading this, then either I am dead or so old that I have forgotten where I put it. Either way, by the time you find this letter, Clara has been waiting a long time. So has our daughter. They have been waiting in this well since 1961. I put them here because I could not bury them where I lived. The ground I live on is the ground of my second life. They belong to my first. I could not mix them. I could not put Clara's ring in my second wife's drawer. I could not put my daughter's hair in my son's nursery. I could not. So I put them here, in the well. Because the well is where I keep what is mine and only mine." Eleanor paused. Adelaide had her hand over her mouth. Pastor Holloway had taken off his hat. Eleanor read on. "But this is not a grave. This is a holding place. A grave is the end. This is not the end. If you are reading this, the time has come to take them home. Bury them properly, together, in the churchyard. Pastor Holloway will know. He has known since the night Clara died. He drove me home from the hospital that night. He sat with me until morning. He never told a soul." Pastor Holloway turned his face away, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Eleanor read the last lines. "And one more thing, to whoever finds this. If you are Eleanor, then you have already found the well, and you have already brought my granddaughter, and you have already done the hardest thing any woman can do, which is to forgive your own child for not understanding you. So this last part is for you, daughter. There is more water in this well than you have been told. The aquifer goes deeper, 40 feet deeper than Cutter wrote down. Cutter knew. Cutter told me. I did not write it on the card because I did not want anyone to find that water until somebody worthy was looking. You are worthy. The water below the water is for the rest of them. Not just you, the rest of them. Asa." Eleanor folded the letter, set it down on the grass. She did not speak. She could not. Adelaide was crying without sound. Pastor Holloway sank slowly to one knee in the grass. He bowed his head. Eleanor reached out, took the ring out of the box, held it up to the light. It was a thin gold band. Inside the band, almost worn smooth 4 letters, C+A. She closed her hand around it, pressed it to her chest. For a long moment, no one spoke. The Brahmins were drifting at the far end of the cleared corner. 2 of the older cows were watching the 3 humans. The kind of watching cattle do when they sense the air has changed around the people in their pasture, even if they cannot say how. The wind moved in the burrock. Pastor Holloway lifted his head. He said in his preaching voice, low and clean, "Lord, we commit Clara Whitcomb and her unnamed daughter to your keeping. They have waited long enough. We will take them home today. Amen." Eleanor and Adelaide said amen. The 3 of them stayed kneeling in the grass for a long while, until the sun moved, until the shadow of the bur oak shifted off the cap, until Eleanor finally stood up and said, "All right." "All right what, Mama?" "All right, now we work." The next 4 days moved fast. Pastor Holloway arranged a small service at the Methodist churchyard. He called the cemetery board. He talked to the funeral director. He did it all without explaining more than he had to. 2 plots opened up, side by side, right next to the plot where Eleanor's baby girl May Whitcomb had rested since 1961, under a stone that said Baby Girl Whitcomb and nothing else. Eleanor went into town, had a new stone cut for May, with her name on it this time. May Eleanor Whitcomb, August 1961. Beloved daughter. She had 2 more stones cut. One said Clara Whitcomb, 1925 to 1949. The other said Baby Girl Whitcomb, May 1949. Beloved daughter. The same words as May's old stone, because they were both beloved, both daughters, both unnamed for too long. The funeral was on Wednesday morning. Pastor Holloway officiated. The only attendees were Eleanor, Adelaide, and Vera, who had driven up from Topeka against her doctor's advice and sat in a folding chair the cemetery had brought out for her. The wind was cold. October had finally come. Pastor Holloway read from 1 Corinthians. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes, all things endures all things. He read it slow. He read it for Asa. He read it for Clara. He read it for the babies. He read it for Eleanor and Adelaide and Vera sitting in a row. 3 women, the last of a long line of women who had carried what they had been told they were strong enough to carry alone. When the service was over, Eleanor knelt in front of May's new stone. She put her hand on the carved letters. She said quietly, "Hello, baby. I'm sorry I took so long. I'm sorry I didn't say your name. It's May. Your name is May." She stayed there a long time. Adelaide came up behind her, put her hand on her mother's shoulder, said, "Hello, sister." Eleanor closed her eyes. She had waited 42 years to hear that word said next to that stone. The well still had to be tested. Pastor Holloway helped her find Walter Tillman 2 townships over, 78 years old. Retired wellman, had learned his trade from Raymond Cutter's son in 1952, had not done a job in 11 years. Eleanor called him on a Tuesday evening, told him what she had. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Mrs. Whitcomb, I will be there Thursday at sunrise." He arrived in a white pickup with rust on the wheel wells, got out slow, carried his testing equipment in a wooden box his father had built for him in 1954. He looked at the limestone shaft. He looked at the cap. He ran his hand along the inside of the rim. He said almost to himself, "My God." Eleanor said, "What?" "Cutter built this, by hand, with 1 helper. My daddy told me about this well when I was 9 years old. He said Cutter drilled one in Harlan County that would outlast every man who'd ever dug a well in Kansas. I thought he was telling stories. Mrs. Whitcomb, he was not telling stories." He lowered his line. He waited. He pulled samples. He ran the field tests. Then he stood up, looked at Eleanor, said, 14 gallons a minute, maybe more once you draw it down a few days. The water's clean. Cleanest I've ever seen come out of Harlan County." Eleanor closed her eyes. She did not cry. She had cried enough that week. She said, "Walter." "Yes, ma'am." "How deep does it go?" He paused. 260 feet, Mrs. Whitcomb." Asa wrote 220. Asa was 40 feet shy. "Why?" "Because the sandstone keeps going. Cutter knew it. He didn't write it down. He told the next generation. My daddy told me. I never thought I'd see this well, but here it is. And what you've got, ma'am, is enough water for this whole side of the county in a bad summer, not just your farm." Adelaide was standing behind her mother. She put her hand on Eleanor's back. Eleanor stood very still. Then she said, "Walter." "Yes, ma'am." "Could you draw up papers for a community trust?" He blinked. "Ma'am, a trust, so that any neighbor in this county who can't water their cattle in a bad summer can come here. Free. Asa Whitcomb Water Trust. That's what we'll call it." Walter Tillman stared at her. Then he took off his cap, held it against his chest, said, "Mrs. Whitcomb, I'll draw the papers myself, free of charge." The papers were drawn up by the end of the next week. Pastor Holloway witnessed. Adelaide notarized. Her notary commission was still good from her accounting work in Wichita. The Asa Whitcomb Water Trust was registered with the county on a Monday morning in late October. It said in plain English that the well on the northeast corner of the Whitcomb property would provide water at no charge to any farmer in Harlan County during any officially declared agricultural drought. In perpetuity. The county clerk read it twice, looked up at Eleanor, said, "Mrs. Whitcomb, you sure about this?" "I'm sure. This is unusual." "I know. This is generous." "It isn't generous. It's owed." The clerk did not understand. Eleanor did not explain. She had stopped explaining a long time ago. Word got out the way it always does in a small county. Adelaide stayed. She did not go back to Wichita. She filed for divorce by mail. She turned in the keys to the apartment. She arranged for her things to be shipped to her mother's house. Curtis Jr. came for Thanksgiving and cried in the kitchen the way Adelaide had cried 6 weeks before. His grandmother held him. She did not say much. She made him a fried egg sandwich with too much butter, the way her father-in-law had made her one in 1959. Some things travel forward. Adelaide opened a small accounting office in the front parlor of the farmhouse. She put a sign on the porch, "Not Whitcomb Accounting." She used her maiden name and her married name. "Because both of them are mine," she told her mother, "and I am not letting Curtis take the part of me I built myself." Vera moved up from Topeka in January. The chemo had ended. The cancer was in remission. The doctors used the word cautious. Vera used the word fine back at them. She moved into the bedroom at the top of the stairs, the one with the blue flowers on the wallpaper. 3 women in a farmhouse in Kansas in the year 2003. A mother, a daughter, a sister. Eleanor would wake in the morning and come downstairs and find Vera at the table with coffee and Adelaide at the stove with eggs. And the house would be warm in a way it had not been warm since Roland was alive. Dale Kramer came up the driveway on a Tuesday afternoon in November. His F-250 was dustier than it had been in July. He got out slow, hat in his hand. Eleanor was on the porch with a cup of coffee. She did not stand up. He walked to the bottom of the steps. He said, "Mrs. Whitcomb." "Dale, I heard about the trust." I lost my whole corn crop. The combine note's due in February. I don't know how I'm going to make it." "I figured. I came to ask if I could draw water for my cattle. I've got 50 head, and the pond's gone dry." Eleanor looked at him. She did not answer right away. She thought about July, about the laugh, about the petting zoo. She thought about Asa. She thought about Clara. She thought about what kind of woman she wanted to be in the next 20 years of her life. Then she said, "Dale, you can draw water." He nodded, started to turn. She said, "But sit down first." He stopped. "Ma'am, sit down on these porch steps, Dale Kramer, and let me tell you about Asa Whitcomb." He looked at her. He looked at the steps. He sat down. Eleanor told him. She told him about Asa, about the February night in 1987, about the index card, about Clara, about the journal, about the cap, about the babies. She told him for an hour. Dale Kramer did not interrupt, did not check his watch, did not look at his truck. He just listened. When she was done, he sat for a long time looking at his hands. Then he said, "Mrs. Whitcomb." "Dale, I'm sorry." "For what?" "For what I said. In July. About the petting zoo." "I know. I'm sorry for a lot of things." "I know that too, Dale." He stood up, put his hat back on. He said, "I'll bring my truck tomorrow, for the water." "Bring it any time." "Mrs. Whitcomb." Thank you." "Don't thank me, Dale." "Why?" "Thank Asa." Thanksgiving came. Pastor Holloway suggested a small ceremony at the well, just to mark it, just to name it. Eleanor agreed. About 50 people came. The neighbors, the Hendersons from across the road, Dale Kramer with his hat in his hand, Walter Tilgman, who drove in from 2 townships over, Mrs. Detweiler from the post office, the Pritchett brothers looking at the ground. They stood in a loose semicircle around the well. The Brahmins watched from the far fence the way Brahmins watch anything they have already decided is harmless. Pastor Holloway stood at the cap. He opened his Bible to Genesis 26. He read the story of Isaac, how Isaac's father Abraham had dug wells, how Isaac's neighbors had filled them in out of jealousy, how Isaac had gone back and dug them again, how Isaac had named the wells. Pastor Holloway closed the Bible. He said, looking out at the crowd, "Some wells are dug to give, some wells are kept to wait." Eleanor Whitcomb waited. Asa Whitcomb kept. He paused. Then he said, "Today we dedicate this well, not to one family, not to one farm, to Harlan County. May the water that comes from this ground in dry years remember the man who capped it, the woman who opened it, and the daughter who stood with her." He raised his hand. He blessed the water. He blessed the well. He blessed the 3 women standing at the rim. Eleanor, Adelaide, Vera. He blessed the cattle in the field. He blessed Dale Kramer, who was standing at the back of the crowd with his hat in his hand and tears on his face. He blessed Adelaide's son, Curtis Jr., who had driven over from K-State and was standing next to his mother, holding her hand. He said, "Amen." 50 people said amen. The wind moved through the cleared corner. Somewhere a meadowlark called. The cap was open in the sun. Spring came. The April after the well was opened, Eleanor was 69. She got up before sunrise. She put on her late husband's flannel shirt, the one she had stopped washing too often on purpose, the one she would never throw away. She walked out to the cap. She had something in her hand, the tin box. Inside it, the wedding ring Asa had left for Clara. The vial of his daughter's hair was gone. They had buried it in October. But Asa had asked her in the journal to keep the ring at the well, as a marker, as a witness. She put the box down on the limestone rim. She placed a flat piece of limestone over it. A weight. She said very quietly, Asa, you were right. There is a difference between kept and abandoned. Most people never learn to feel it. But I have. And Adelaide is learning. And one day my granddaughters will. She stood up. The sun was just clearing the eastern fence line. Behind her, the screen door of the house opened. Adelaide came out. She was carrying 2 coffee cups. She walked across the yard slowly, boots in the wet grass, steam rising from the cups. She handed one to her mother. Eleanor said, "Morning, baby." "Morning, Mama." They stood at the cap together, drinking coffee, watching the sun climb. Vera came out of the house and sat in the rocker on the porch. She had a blanket over her knees, Mr. Eisenhower in her lap. She was knitting something small and white. A baby blanket. Curtis Jr. had told his grandmother in February that his fiancée was pregnant. Eleanor had laughed for 10 minutes. Then she had cried for 5. Then she had walked out to the cap and told Asa about it. Now there was a baby coming. A girl. They already knew. They had named her already. May. After the aunt she would never meet. After the great-aunt she would never meet. After the woman whose flannel shirt her great-grandmother still wore on cold mornings. May. Eleanor looked down at the cap. She put her hand on it. It was warm in the morning sun. She said, Asa. May's coming home. In July. Just in time for summer. Adelaide reached over and took her mother's hand. They stood there together, 2 women, at a well, in a field, in a county that had brought them all the way back to each other. A red-tailed hawk crossed the field low and banked north without a sound. The Brahmans were starting to stir at the far end of the pasture. The morning was coming. The well was open. The water was rising. There is something worth saying about choosing what you already have over what someone is selling you. It is not stubbornness. Stubbornness is holding a bad position because you cannot admit it is bad. This is different. This is knowing the ground you are standing on, knowing it the way you know the weight of your own hand, and trusting that knowledge. When the people with better equipment and fancier numbers tell you it does not add up. Eleanor squeezed her daughter's hand. Adelaide squeezed back. That was enough. That was always enough. Andy.